Guilt tripping and bullying depression victims. This is something that's a huge problem, and the reason it's such a massive problem is because most people do it. They're not aware that they're doing it, and it's very damaging. When it comes to helping out depression victims and suicide victims, they need the utmost support and help. However, one of the most common tactics that almost everyone uses is things such as common lines like, you know, you're selfish, you don't appreciate what you have. If you killed yourself, look all the people you'd be letting down, your family, your friends. Saying, oh, look at how much better you have it than everyone else. Or talking about people who are starving in fucking Uganda and Ethiopia, and then going on saying, well, look, at least you're not starving like they are. Bullying them, being like, you need to feel better because there's people in Africa who have it worse than you. And guilt tripping them, talking about how, oh, you're just being selfish. These are the two most common tactics to help depression victims, and they're also the two most common things that hurt depression victims. I have a major problem with these statements, and like I said in the past videos, they do not help. Okay? They do not. I genuinely do not understand why people say this. When a person is in the state of depression, more times than not, they're depressed about something in their own lives, or something in someone else's life, you know? And this applies to both things. If they're depressed about something in their own life, then chances are it's for a selfish reason, because it's in their life. But you know, they're the ones who are depressed about it, and you have no right to call them selfish. Everyone needs to be able to think about themselves once in a while. Everyone needs to think about their own life and what they're doing with their life and what is going on in their own life that upsets them. Going up to them and saying, well, you know what? If you killed yourself, you'd be a selfish brat because there are people who care about you. No. You don't talk like that. These people are coming across as selfish to you, but the fact of the matter is, it's reasonable. Because you're thinking about yourself, and that's why you're depressed, because there's something going on in your life that you can't handle or you're having trouble handling. Calling them selfish makes them feel worse about themselves, because they don't actually want to be selfish, but that's what depression causes them to do. They don't know, they don't know that they're being selfish, or they don't acknowledge that they're being selfish because they're fucking depressed. You don't talk to depression victims or suicide victims this way by calling them selfish. You make them feel worse about themselves. Much worse about themselves. And the exact same logic applies when you bully them by making comments like, oh, well, there's people who are starving. Look how good you have it. You're basically bullying them out of their depression. And again, you're going to make them feel worse. You know, let's say that their depression is not for something selfish. Let's say that there's someone like me. You know, me, a lot of my sadness comes from when I look at the world and I see how messed up it is. Because I care about other people. So when I look at the world and I see how messed up it is and how messed up people are and how messed up the government is and all this stuff, I get sad about that. Yeah, I get sad about selfish things too, because I have my life. But I also get sad about things that have no effect on me at all. Or don't directly affect me anyway. But when I look at the world, that affects me. I want world peace. I want things to be better. I want people to be better. And when I see how messed up people are, it makes me sad. So if people say to me, well, Matt, look how much better you have it, there's people starving. That's not going to make me feel better. It's going to make me feel worse to know that there's people starving. And not to mention just that, but also the fact that how is it going to make me feel better to know there's other people who have it worse off than me? I want people to be equal. I don't want people to have it worse off than me. And not only is this just a bad statement in general, telling people, oh, if people have it worse off than you, making them feel worse, is that also a bad statement that makes people feel worse about themselves. But it's like you're also bullying them into feeling better. Oh, look at a selfish brat you're being. You have food and you have shelter, but that person doesn't even have either one of them. And look, you're such a brat. Look at you complaining about your life. Depression is not something you can fucking control. Nobody's gonna go, you know what? I am lucky. I have this can of corn, so I'm great. No! They're going to be depressed about something in their own life, or they're depressed about something in someone else's life. Like me, I get depressed about the world, the problems in the world. It makes me sad. So people go, oh, well, Matt, but people have it worse off than you. It's not going to help me, and it's not going to help anybody else either. These two statements need to be removed. Please, if you guys help anybody through a depression or a suicide talk, don't say to them that they're being selfish, or that, you know, they need to think about their family and friends, and that's the reason not to kill yourself. No. And they also need to stop saying that, you know, they need to stop with the selfish thing, and they need to stop bullying you into feeling better, because you're only going to make them feel worse. And you can ask anybody who suffers from depression, they do feel worse when they hear these two statements. They do feel worse. They feel much, much worse about themselves when you make these two statements, and they only want to cut or kill themselves or get more depressed much, much deeper, much more. These statements do not help, and it scares me just how common they are. When I help the people who are depressed, I never say those two things. I would never call them selfish. I would never say that they're, you know, being brats because it's people who have it worse off. These are two very bad statements that make them feel nothing but worse. When you're depressed, you don't have control over what you feel and what you think. Depression takes over you. Depression is a way bigger controller than any logic or reason you have. When people suffer from manic depression, chronic depression, severe depression, logic doesn't win. Their feelings do. And they are so damaging. And telling them that they're selfish is only going to damage them much more. You cannot bully somebody into feeling better. You cannot guilt trip somebody into feeling better about their lives. You cannot, ever. So please, support somebody who is going through issues, but not by calling them names like spoiled, or a brat, or selfish. Depression victims acknowledge that they do have food and shelter, and I'm sure they acknowledge that there's people in Africa and stuff who are starving. I'm sure they acknowledge that, but you don't just be like, oh, you know what, that person has it worse off than me, so I'm going to be super happy and just let my depression go. Because you can't let depression go anyway. It controls you. So people need to learn about depression. Depression is not a choice.